Welcome to Entrepreneur State of Mind. I'm your host, Dr. Dale Caldwell, and I have the honor of having a friend and one of the best consultants I know, Jackie Lue Raia. Jackie, how are you?
I'm so good, Dale. Thank you so much for having me today.
Well, it's an honor to have you, and she's the CEO of ALEXENA Consulting. So we're going to learn a lot about what she's doing and how we're working together in some exciting projects going forward. But first, I always like the origin stories. And so Jackie, where were you born and where did you grow up and how did you end up where you are?
Well, all exciting stuff. Mm-hmm. I was actually born on the island of Jamaica.
All right.
I am Chinese by descent.
Okay.
I have a little bit of Cuban in me.
Wow, wow.
So yeah, so in and of myself, very, very diverse.
Yeah.
Came to the States when I was 5.
Okay.
And lived in Manhattan for a little bit, and then actually grew up and started my family in Orange County, New York.
Wow. Now, where'd you go to high school?
Monroe Woodbury High School,
okay.
Central Valley, New York.
New York, nice. Yes. Okay. Oh, good, good. And so now you're married. How many kids do you have?
I have 2 kids, 28 and 26, Casey and Kyler, and so they're grown and doing that adulting. And yeah, so I raised my family in Bergen County, in New Jersey.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. So you're doing a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion. For those that don't know, DEI stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Consulting. How did you get into that? What did you do before that led up to starting your own consulting firm?
Yeah, for my entire professional career, I want to say, so 25 plus years I've been doing diversity work.
Okay.
When I was the CEO of the Partnership for Community Health, I started the Multicultural Task Force because we were all about healthcare, and health disparities have been in existence for so long. So I started this task force to gather anyone who had anything to do with the health, well-being, lifestyle, everything of the entire community living in New Jersey.
Wonderful,
and
wonderful.
So yeah, so it's been a while in coming. So I've been in that world for a bit, but then in asking, most recently, asking corporations doing cultural competency trainings and the like, what is it that they really need to learn about? And so diversity, as you know, Dale, has become even more important in the last 18 months. So it has just been a journey for me that has been quite enjoyable and extremely a great learning experience, but very rewarding for me.
And it's really just starting. I mean, this is, every companies are now starting to realize that diversity is the rule, not the exception. I was one of the first black senior manager at Deloitte Consulting, and I started a group, the Association of Black and Latino Employees, back in the 80s. And that diversity was the exception, not the rule. Now it's the rule. Virtually everybody's diverse, and so you really have to learn how to manage everybody, and you do just such a great job. One of the things I will tell the audience about Jackie, everybody I meet says Jackie's the most wonderful person in the world. I have, most people say, oh, she's nice, but it would say, got somebody, but everybody is effusive about Jackie, so you have some magic that works real well. And so what is it unique about your practice as you're working with a lot of different folks that people really, really love working with you?
You know what it is, Dale? I believe, I'm not quite sure, but this is what it is. Every day I bring my true self to the table. Good. And sometimes there is a rawness and an authenticity that comes out, and a vulnerability. And I think that is what we as human beings are not used to seeing in other people. It's like, oh, she's really touching on something sensitive in and of her own world, so maybe it's okay that I do it. And that, I think, is what the magic ingredient is, and something that I have vowed to myself professionally and personally. I will never stray from that.
Well, that's a great point, because I think there's so many people who feel trapped, that they can't talk to anybody, they can't open up. They're of all races and backgrounds and genders and sexual orientation, and to create a safe space where people are comfortable to be themselves. And I think by you being yourself helps other people become themselves in an environment that oftentimes, I really hate the celebrity culture where everything's supposed to be perfect and rich and good looking and all this stuff, instead of the warts of real life, right? And so I think we do that. And so talk to me about If you are consulting to some of we have big businesses and medium and small businesses watching the show and individuals. What advice would you give folks as they're thinking about, well, what is diversity? How do I begin this journey of really trying to maximize the effectiveness of my diverse team?
So I think the absolute first thing, regardless of who you are, is ask your team what they believe diversity is. And then after that, what do they believe is the most important thing of themselves that they want to bring to work? Right. Because that is the only time, and by the way, ask them. But the more important thing is to listen to them, respond to their responses, and then keep asking the question. Right. Because in today's day and age, we're changing by the second. Yes. It seems that, you wake up in the morning, you turn on the news, and you're like, okay, what is my life going to look like today? Because it changes. I think that is the most important thing that a company, leadership, regardless of who you are, ask your colleagues, ask your people, what is it about you that you need to bring to work to be your absolute best self? Because when you're your best self, you bring goodness to the company, and that will only result in goodness all around for our clients and for our customers.
I think that's really a brilliant point. I think another challenge people have is they think diversity is black and white. Diversity is just one thing, and so I don't need to do that. I have black friends or I have white friends, and so I'm okay. But it really goes beyond that. And so talk a little more about what that means, what true diversity really is all about.
So, in the beginning of most of my sessions, I have my whoever's attending define what they believe diversity is.
Oh, wonderful. That's a great way to start.
Yeah, because everyone's interpretation is different.
Right.
And it is, the word diversity is being used so much that the definitions are going to change. So that is how I start the sessions. And from that's what lays the groundwork. Because, especially since COVID started, diversity could mean, we're both working from home. You're in your living room, I'm in my living room, but I have 3 toddlers behind me and a dog that is running around like crazy people that I can't even get 5 minutes to verbalize what I need to on this virtual meeting. You are a bachelor, you live alone, you're in peace and quiet. That's diversity.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
What does my life look like? What makes up me? That's what diversity is. And it could be, I wake up this morning and I'm blue. That's what's creating my diversity that day. I'm in a place where maybe I'm not so happy and not so up, but maybe an hour from now, I'm good. I'm smiling, I'm ready to go. It changes by the second. And that is, I think, the most key thing to diversity. Where are you right now?
And I build on that too, as I've mentioned a few times on the show, that I wrote this book on influence called Intelligent Influence, and that people are products that are influencing. And people who are different are much more interesting. Their influencers are different. So often we hang around with people just like us because it's more comfortable. But I challenge my group to say, find somebody you don't know or even don't like, and find out their influences, find out who they are. And if you do that enough, it becomes incredibly interesting. You seek out those folks. I mean, you and I obviously do that, but so many folks are scared or of different. And so now, how do you help people come over? And that's what we're dealing with in society now around the world. Is that different? People watch a certain TV station and there's different TV stations, and they have completely opposite views about virtually everything. Whether it's vaccines or politics or religion or whatever. And so, how do you deal with those kinds of battles?
So one of the sessions that I've created, I call "Come Share Your Voice," embracing curiosity and uncomfortableness. Nice. Right? So right off the bat, everybody at the table, we're going to get uncomfortable. Good. But that's okay. We're going to get there together. Good. With the hope that we're going to get a little less uncomfortable together. But what I find, and I find this with me, every day you try to learn something new. Things that, you say, go talk to someone you don't like. Well, you're not really going to approach someone and say, I don't really like you.
Right,
I
right,
really
right,
want to
right,
get to
right.
know you. The approach is, I don't really understand you.
Right, right.
So help me understand you, and then I'm going to share something about me that you may not know. Right? When we do that, when we kind of let that guard down and show lack of knowledge or lack of appreciation to somebody, but preface it by saying, I just want to learn, this is how I believe we are going to, as a community, get to learn and know and appreciate each other better.
Absolutely. And I think that really is a great way to approach it. So now, if as you begin to talk to companies that call you up and say, well, Jackie, I don't know if we want to do this, what do you say to them? How do you convince them that this is really, really an important investment of their time and money?
So I think you have to talk whatever that company's language is.
Right.
But I cannot think of a single person, single CEO, a single leader that doesn't understand retention,
Right.
customer, employee, client satisfaction, and just happiness. More than just contentment. We want to be happy, right? I think when you speak to where they are truly affected as a leader, that's when you're going to get someone to say, okay, yeah, we could use a little help there. We could use a little help there. And just the plain question, what is it that's keeping you up at night? What is it that is preventing you and your company and your staff of employees to create the best place to work? And that's when they start to think, well, you mentioned that. I'm really concerned with X. All right, well, let's talk about that. Let's see what might work for you with your organization, with your company, to say, what can we do together to try to fix this?
Wonderful. Well, we're about halfway through the show, and we're going to take a break now. When we come back, I want to talk about some of the particular challenges that you've seen as you've gone through this, 20 plus years of doing this. So we will see you right after the break.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Welcome back to Entrepreneur State of Mind. I'm your host, Dr. Dale Caldwell, with Jackie Lue Raia, the CEO of ALEXENA Consulting, and we've just been talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how important it is to the operations of a company, but really to their bottom line. Jackie and I, as many of you know, I'm the executive director of the Rothman Institute of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at Fairleigh Dickinson University, but I'm also chairing the President's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Council, where we are really looking at every issue related to diversity in the university, and we just won a grant from the state of New Jersey, which was funded from the federal government, to really take this to another level at FDU. And I'm pleased to say ALEXENA will be the consulting firm helping us build that out and really helping us consult. And it could be a real model for other universities. Because so often, I can almost tell sometimes if people went to college or not. And not because of how smart they are, but their sensitivity to diversity. College is one of the best ways for people to interact with people they otherwise would never interact with. And so I can see when someone just went to a high school that really was monolithic and are very xenophobic in their views, oftentimes they didn't go to college. And so, but because of that, there are challenges. This is the first time. And so as you look at something like a university setting, you know, what do you think are some of the issues that you might find at a university that universities really have to pay attention to?
Oh, gosh. There are quite a number, and I have to commend FDU on taking on this initiative because it's a brave step and it's rare,
Yeah,
right?
it is rare.
If there are beating hearts on your campus, whether you're administration, faculty, student, family of student, family of all the employees, you have got a diversity opportunity that you need to build on, that you need to acknowledge, first of all, which I think FDU is doing a great job. We're on our way. But there's so many things, especially when you're talking about, you have, say your students have come to live on your campus. Your campus is their world.
Exactly.
If you don't set the example that this is the true world and this is how you deal with it and how you become a part of it and how you belong to it, you're going to miss a great opportunity. And because our young people are so bright, they are choosing not only universities, but they're choosing occupations that are going to offer them those opportunities to live and breathe in this diverse and world of belonging, right?
Yes.
So it's critical, Dale. It's critical.
No, and really every university really needs to do this now. And it sets the tone for their life after college. It's one of the educational tools that will help them succeed in a very diverse world that's really becoming more and more diverse. So before we go further, so we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. For the audience, could you kind of define those three terms as you see them? They're different definitions, but I'd love to hear your perspective on those three words.
So diversity, again, as we mentioned before, I think is a combination of everything that makes you up. Makes up an individual, makes up a group. That is diversity. And you're absolutely right. It's not just about color of skin, not just about religion. It's just about, are you a single mom? Are you an only child? Are you one of 10 children? All these things have to be taken into consideration. Equity is an interesting thing because I think a lot of people confuse equity with equality. Okay? Equity to me, and I like to use this example, is three people are going into a room. Everybody has to come out with $5. So if person one has $3, person two has $1, and person three has no dollars, as a group, everybody's got to figure out a way that all three of them can walk out with $5, right? And you know, to put it in that context, we were like, oh, right?
No, that's excellent.
Some people need more help than others to get to a common goal, a common place. Inclusion means that regardless of who you are, what you do, what your diverse makeup is, what you come to the table with as far as resources for equity, you're going to feel like you belong. I feel like I am a part of this team, whether that is a team of 2 or a team of 2,000. You as a company or an entity are making me feel like I belong here, that I am valued here, and that I am appreciated. Excellent. So those are my definitions.
And those are excellent, very, very, very good. They're excellent definitions. And I go back to the whole influence, because what happens is so many people are influenced a certain way, and they don't quite understand or are sensitive to people being excluded, right? Or lack of equity. And, you know, so that's one of the reasons that this is so important, is let people know that, hey, let's see things from other people's perspective. Let's empathize with, let's try to put ourselves in other people's moccasins and think about where they're coming from. And that's not natural, and especially in the business world. And that's part of what you do. You really help to open people's eyes to, oh, wow, I never thought. I mean, I love it when I see people saying, oh, I never thought of this from their perspective. I always thought of it from my perspective and then wondered why they didn't behave the way I did. And that's where I use the influence to say people have different influences and so on. The other thing that I'm excited about is that we're both part of this Human Advantage, wonderful consulting firm that's working with largely sports organizations, and we'll be doing a training called Race to Include, where we're really helping the organizations begin this DEI process in a very open and honest dialogue. So you'll hear more and more about that. But also, before we run out of time, you're an expert in so many things, but workforce development, you have just an amazing background there in healthcare. We could do 10 shows on Jackie Lue Raia. But talk about your workforce development passions, because that's one of my passions as well.
So, particularly coming from higher ed, identifying populations that are underserved and identifying pools of money that go unclaimed, say from the Labor Department, getting those two opportunities together and presenting to this group of people who may not consider themselves skilled enough to get a job, like entry-level job. The best scenario is that when I can get university, individual who needs job training, and labor to pay for it. And we all end up, you talk about equity, we all want to get everyone employed. So that to me is the ultimate of workforce development.
Yes.
Get you the skills and the self-esteem, by the way, and a strong resume that you could get yourself a great job that, by the way, is family supporting.
Right.
That's the key.
Right, exactly. And that's been my passion. As the audience knows, my dad knew in March with Dr. King, and Saturday was the anniversary of the March on Washington. And people don't realize the March on Washington was for jobs and freedom. Dr. King knew it was about jobs, economic well-being for the community, not just freedom. And so this workforce development, and so I've done a lot of work in urban communities and as you know, coined a term called urban traumatic stress disorder, that just being poor and being in areas where there's violence and chaos and sometimes abuse changes the amygdala part of the brain. And so as you're doing workforce training, you've got to really be socially, emotionally sensitive to really help folks develop the work ethic. And again, it goes back to empathy. Because so many people said, well, I worked hard when I was a kid. What's wrong with these folks? And they don't realize generation after generation of being beaten down and dealing with all sorts of things is hard to turn around very quickly, but it can be turned around. And then universities can play a role to really do the education as well as the training. And so, and you've been on part of the Bergen County Workforce Investment Board for a few
Essex
years?
Essex County as well.
Essex County as well,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
And so people have heard the WIBs. What do they do? What do WIBs do?
So primarily what they try to do is help match up employers to potential employees to seek funding and provide funding for individuals, just like we just spoke about people who are in need of funds. But one of the things, and it's all a great network of people with the endpoint of let's get everybody to work, okay? But what's interesting in listening to you, Dale, and you talk about diversity. So, in urban communities, yes, absolutely, huge need. But what about the more affluent communities? There are instances, or too many occurrences, of failed businesses, of domestic violence, of mental health issues that we too have to walk in their moccasins as well to say, what is your challenge and how can we, as providers of workforce development, help you as well? So I hit on a lot of different areas, and the workforce development boards are a great venue to do that. But talking to each and every one of the members of those boards and finding out what is it that's keeping your organization awake at night, and how can we, as consultants, as workforce development experts or job development experts, how can we help you help your clients and your members?
See, and I think that's so important. And one of the best things that came out of this Olympics was the respect for emotional challenges, the respect for mental health issues. And I think that's a form of diversity that we often overlook. and it impacts all levels of society. And so we need to, that's why mindfulness has been so important, because it's been proven to really help people bring back and come back and focus. But I think as we think about diversity, we think about workforce development, we think about, it's understanding that we're all different and we're all dealing with our own diversity, and we should be celebrating that at a time when we're saying, what side are you on? Pick a side.
Pick a side.
Pick a side, and that's really unhealthy in so many ways. Yeah.
Except if you say, I'm on my side.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm on my side.
Yeah.
I need to make sure that I take care of myself. But Dale, you bring up such an interesting point with mental health. That's one of those invisible diversities that if you don't have a conversation, how are you going to get to that spot where you appreciate those moccasins that that person is walking, right? So again, the getting to know somebody, asking the questions, and getting a little uncomfortable with them is okay.
Right.
Is okay, because you would think, oh, we're of a community or a population that says you're being really nosy.
Right.
But there's a way to ask questions that says, I really care about you. Mm-hmm. I just want to learn. And if you're not comfortable sharing with me, I understand that. But just know I'm here and I'm listening.
Well, it's reminding more, and we're almost at the end of the show. I did a program called Invisible Wounds, a conference called Invisible Wounds at Rutgers Newark, and the idea, we had domestic violence, had veterans, and had urban trauma, and I think we need to do more and more of that as a form of diversity. So finally, we're going to close it out, but if people want to connect with you, if there are companies that said, I love what Jackie was saying, we need to talk to her about coming to our company, how do they reach you? What's your website? And what?
So my website is www.alexenaconsulting.com. My email is Jackie, Jackie, at alexenaconsulting.com. And my cell, please, it's on all the time, 551-255-6997.
Well, Jackie, again, thank you so very
Dale,
much.
what a pleasure.
Yeah, this is always a lot of fun. I want to thank you all for watching. Again, this is Entrepreneur State of Mind. I'm your host, Dr. Dale Caldwell. We will see you next week. Take care and have a great week.